What is happening, everybody? I finally got the SRAM ETAP AXS Force Wide onto a bike. And not only that, so many things came in to be reviewed at the same time. I basically did a complete new build. It's totally hectic and awesome. I'm going to run you through what is on the new build and also give you some of my early first impressions of using the SRAM group set. It's not really a review, it's just me reflecting on the experience of using this new and super cool tech. And let's do it. First, the build, and I've taken the Grove RAD and given it a total overhaul with basically new everything. I rebuilt this frame rather than doing a fully new build because I love it. The geometry is fantastic and it's just so damn fun to ride, so the frame remains, as does the seat post clamp and the headset, but everything else is new. There's the new group set, obviously. The wheels are bossy RD1s, which I'll make a video about very soon. They're sub 1400 gram carbon mixed terrain monsters, and I do rather like them. On the rims are new Pirelli Cinturato M's in 40mm, and holy moly, these tires are good! Again, full review will come in due course. At the front, I have a surprisingly cheap but very handsome Zip Service Course Explore cockpit with some thick and tacky zip bar tape. At the back is my favorite seat post of all time, the Syntace P6 High Flex, which I already owned, but was sitting in my cupboard doing nothing, so I pulled it out for this. Atop that is one of the fanciest saddles I've ever seen, a Sally Repent Lattice M. 140 grams of lightly covered carbon goodness. I am a fan of carbon saddles and have been for years, and this is really a thing of beauty and surprisingly comfortable so far. So that's the build. Let's talk about my first impressions of the group set. First, let's talk about how I bodged this group set onto a 1x frame. And yes, some bikes are just designed around 1x. The Grove's chainstays and bottle cage mounts are not really designed with a double chainring in mind and with a front derailleur in mind. So there's a few things that you need to sort out before you can get this drivetrain to work on a bike like that, and there are a lot of bikes like that out there. Now, before I show you what I did, there is a tool called the Problem Solver's Braze-On adapter, which is actually designed to help do exactly what we ended up doing, just with some tools instead. So that's a good place to start if you're thinking of putting a 2x group set on a 1x frame. Basically, Pete managed to do some surgery on the frame and a little bit on the band to get it to all sort of fit where it should be while maintaining the thread on the bottle cage mount. So yes, we had to take some material out, but you can't really see it. It's all hidden behind the bottle cage and by the band. So that puts it in the perfect spot, and yeah, it seems to work pretty well and be very clean. Thankfully, the chain rings clear the chainstays as well, and there's no problems coming from that. The second thing I want to talk about is that the tire clearance is already fairly marginal. The front derailleur has been pushed out to accommodate 700 by 45C tires and 650 by 2.1. Here we have some Clement Strata USG 650 by 50 tires, and they are already really close to the battery. And the important thing here is they have a very smooth shoulder on them, so tires that are a bit knobblier on the shoulders are going to get really close, even in widths that are lower than 2.1. Everything in the gravel scene is getting wider all the time, and something that's already fairly marginal on space is gonna find itself a problem very quickly. You could argue that this is already too close. So we'll see what happens with this. Maybe a smaller battery comes out, because that is the problem. The derailleur is fine, it's just the battery. So yeah, we'll see how it goes. Next is the app, and I really like tinkering with the SRAM AXS app when it isn't crashing, of course. You set up a profile for your bike, pair all of the components, and you'll be playing around with the shift settings in no time. You can also use it to update all of your firmware too, which is a very cool thing. Now, I did a little bit of playing around with the enhanced mode shifting, which basically makes compensatory shifting on the cassette when you move chainrings. I initially set it to shift 2 gears at the back when you move chainrings at the front, but that is not a very good idea. When you're sort of groveling your way up a steep gravel climb and you've got plenty of torque going through the drivetrain, you don't really want both of your derailleurs shifting at the same time, and I found that that was quite awkward. If you dial it back to just do one compensatory shift at the back, that's a lot more manageable. There's also the choice of multi-shifts, which determines how far the rear derailleur moves when you hold down the shift button. So you can do either 2 shifts, 3 shifts, or go infinite. I think the sweet spot is about 3 shifts, because if you're really holding down that button, you do want to move a few gears at once. if you have it moving infinitely, it can go really quite far and you kind of might not know exactly where you are on the cassette and have a huge change in cadence. So it's super cool to be able to play with that stuff easily through the app. Other than that, I kept the shift mapping pretty much default. I do really like how ETAP shifts. I've liked it since I first used ETAP a couple of years ago, and I liked it enough to actually make my GRX shift like ETAP, just with each shifter pulling the chain in one direction or the other. Come on Shimano, let us have an app, and also let us have a way to communicate with the group set that isn't buying a D-Flyer, because that is a pain in the butt. Next thing I want to talk about is the gear range, and it is really fantastic and one of the strongest points about this group set. The other day I was spinning along nicely at 55 k's an hour at about 90 RPM. So there's a little bit of headroom there to pedal faster and go faster. I reckon you could pretty easily push it to 60 and still be able to put pressure on the pedals with the 43/10. At the other end, 30/36 is nice when you're groveling your way up really steep gravel climbs. There's always a set of comments that seems to come out when an easier gear range emerges and people are like, just pedal harder. That's not really how it works on gravel and sort of mountain biking as well. It's the same as SRAM Eagle. It just gives you more headroom before you lose traction. I've been getting up some stuff up and over 20% on this group set. It's still pretty damn hard and you have to be careful with how you apply power, but it is nice to have 30/36, especially after spending so much time on the 40/40 Shimano GRX 1x. Lastly, I want to talk about the front derailleur, and it is on quite a knife edge. SRAM ships it with a plastic guide in it to help people set it up, which should tell you that, yeah, it can be a bit of a problem. The rear derailleur is an absolute dream to set up. You just bolt it on and away you go pretty much. But at the front, the tolerances are very fine indeed, and it's not very much of an adjustment between perfect shifting and just throwing the chain off. You can feel on the road as well that the front derailleur shifting isn't quite as confident as other drivetrains. It just doesn't quite snap into place like 11 speed, and I think it is just working on a very fine tolerance. To be fair though, the Campagnolo 12 speed was similar. It didn't quite have the confidence of the Campagnolo 11 speed. It must just be that we're working with very, very fine tolerances and really thin chains, and you know, I think that's just how it's going to be for these group sets. And that is where I'm going to wrap it up, everyone. Stay tuned. There's going to be lots of reviews about the things that you've seen on this new build coming up over the next few months. It'll take me a little while to get a full group set review out because that stuff needs to be done properly over time. Thank you so much for watching. Feel free to stick around and watch more videos, like and subscribe if you haven't, that really helps me out. Ride safe, stay healthy, and I will see you next time.